Zambians to this debate on the Ministry of Religious Affairs and Guidance. I think one of the things that I really want to touch on, Mr. Chair, is the issue that we as Zambians, we need to be reminded that we are Zambians first before our political affiliations. And I think this has become a challenge in our country. We no longer aspire to be good examples to our children, even ourselves, because we have been so overtaken with our political affiliation versus being patriotic to the country, which we found and we will leave when our time is up. Mr. Chair, I want to remind the Ministry of Religious Affairs that indeed she has arisen to this position for such a time as this. As one woman whom we know by the name of Esther, she was reminded that do not keep quiet because you will not be spared in the long run. And so the minister has an obligation to ensure that the country of Zambia continue to be a peaceful country, which I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman, it is eroding day by day. And the people in government have a responsibility to charter the course of this nation. It is them that are setting a standard of how politics should be done in this country. But alas, Mr. Chairman, the political space in this country is diminishing day by day. When you give preferences to those who should speak on what, and curtail others or do not allow others to speak, which is their right as Zambians, as citizens of this country, you are undermining the very essence of peace. And this is what is happening in this country. And I think for me, Mr. Chairman, if we as Zambians are serious about the peace we proclaim, if we are serious about the values of Christianity we proclaim, then we need to be people who are seen to be doing the very fruits of what Christianity is all about. This is a country that has enjoyed peace. This is a country that we chose to become democratic. And in the democratic dispensation, people should be given the freedom to express themselves. But this is not happening, Mr. Chair. And it leaves a lot of us, especially young people who have come into, or young, not young as in children, but younger entries in politics, to really look at politics and say this is a laughing stock, not only for this country, but for the many nations that Zambia has aspired for many years. When we talk of religion, Mr. Chair, there was a Nathan in one of the Book of Life who was able to hold David, the king of Israel, accountable to his deeds. And I think this is what the ministry should be all about. When David was asked the question, who did that? Nathan replied without fear, it was you, David. So the question is, what is the Ministry of Religious Affairs doing to ensure that the Christian principles, the Christian values, the Christian ethics are being held by the leaders of this country and all of us? It leaves a lot to be desired for. Look at the poverty levels in our country. You don't need to go and do a research to understand that Zambia sits among the countries that are full of poverty, and the illiteracy levels are very high. There is a book called Gems. It says, pure religion takes care of its orphans, its widows, and the poorest in their society. So you tell us, when you see the street kids on the street, when you see the widows crying for their payments of the benefits of their late husbands or wives for years and years, and the government is not listening, is this pure religion that we're calling ourselves? I think it should pain us to realize that we are fortunate to be in these seats to be able to be voices of the people, just like the Ministry of Religious Affairs is a voice beyond even us here. But I hope that she'll become a voice to the president of this nation, because there lies the peace or the lack of peace in this country. Religion should not be used as the opium of the poor, as Karl Marx said. We have heard from other speakers already, Mr. Chair, that in many cases, religion has been misused and people have gone on a very bad path. The division that we hear about, the divisions that we're beginning to see, is a political construct that has been created in this country to discriminate others against the very basic resources that they need or services. Why should that be the case? Where would the ordinary Zambians go if Zambia, what they call their country, cannot give them the very basic of every human's cry? They cannot get their job because of a certain religion or certain tribe. When did we become like that? It is a political construct that needs to be destroyed or dismantled, lest we go on the path where many African countries have gone. Mr. Chair, it's important to understand that some of us may have the privilege to leave this country, but that is not the reality of the nearly 15, 16 million people here in Zambia. When this country goes ablaze, it will be too late, and we have a responsibility as leaders to do the right thing. It is what true religion is all about. How do we feel when we can afford a meal and we know the truth is a lot of our people here in Zambia cannot even talk about 3 meals a day? And we want to continue politicking in these wars. Yet we have family members. Some of us have constituencies in rural areas. We know these realities day by day. I think enough is enough, ladies and gentlemen. And I think Zambians are saying enough is enough. We are becoming a disgrace. Why should that be? This ministry, I have to declare that I am a theologian by background. And I've pastored and trained a lot of pastors overseas. This is not the conversations we should be having in 2018, talking about this political space for other people is diminishing, while if you're in PF, then you're given the platform. Why should that be? It hurts because it threatens the very fabric of our nation. If there's one thing that is constant in life, is change. PF, you have a responsibility to do your mandate, for you have few more years before 2021. So what is the problem? You already have the power. Execute what is good for the poor. Execute what is good for the orphans. Execute what is good for people living with HIV. Execute for what is good for the widows. These are your relatives. For how long should we come here and talk, and yet the actions are beyond what is responsive? For how long? And yet we have a ministry that is given the mandate to ensure that the ethics and the morals of this country are an example of what a Christian nation is supposed to be. You shall know them by their fruits. There's no ways around it. You can say all you want, but your fruits will tell you the reality of what you believe in. And so it is important that as a country, enough is enough. Because the same way you are seated here, it may look like a laughing matter. Tomorrow you want to be here. Someone else will be here, and you want them to do what is just for the poor. You want them to do what is just for the rural people. The rural people have been used in this country. They come and vote in and day out, and yet they don't see the benefits. Where are the schools in our rural areas? Where are the clinics in our rural areas? You shall know them by their fruits. We are talking of the budget here. What is the allocation to agriculture when we are claiming that we will diversify our country in agriculture? How much was allocated to agriculture? This is where the guidance comes in. Because if you cannot eat, how will you worship, Mr. Chair? How would people worship if they can't even feed their own children? They are coming, some of them, because they know if they do not come, their jobs are threatened. Christianity's key, it does not force anyone to worship the God that it proclaims. But why is it that since Zambia claimed to a Christian nation now, even to go for prayer, you are forced to go there? What kind of religion are we talking about? That's not Christianity. So until we correct our deeds, until our actions can ask, what are we doing for the vulnerable of our society? There's only time that will tell. If I remember correctly, a lot of people were excited when PF said was coming in power because it said there will be more money in people's pockets and less taxes. But what is the current situation? Every Zambian knows there's no money in their pockets. I think this country has a paralysis of not implementing what it talks about. It is a cancer that we have allowed as a country. And I think this is where this ministry will sit so well to begin to speak to these issues, because you cannot profess to be living on Christian principles when people are hungry, when poverty levels continue to be high, when the women who are supposed to be the backbone of the country are left behind. What good does it do if we only have 1% of the bourgeoisie or those who are rich and the mass of the Zambians are poor? What good does it do? How many shoes can you wear, for crying out loud? I think it's critical that we begin to search within our hearts. Not even prayer will do it. Not even day of prayer will do it. And it's a call to the religious leaders in Zambia. Be neutral if you're going to drive this country to the destination where it's supposed to be going. When did Christians become for princess? What is that? How can we have Christians for this region, for this person? It does not exist unless you tell us there is a different religion that is being practiced as Christianity in Zambia. But the Christianity that we know of, some of us who have been studied theology, the Christianity that we know of, those that is proclaimed around the world, is that even the very basic human rights must be promoted, must be respected, and must be preserved. The opposition has a great responsibility to the executive. So when the opposition speak, especially when it is positive criticism, hear them for the sake of this nation. When an opposition leader speak, hear he or she, because she may just have what is there to offer for the better direction of this country. But unfortunate, when you speak as opposition, you are seen as, now look what you are saying. Instead of hearing the positive criticism so that we can charter this country forward for a better future, not only for us who are in here, for some of us who have been privileged to be able to live this country, but for the mass, for the very Zambians who are saying enough is enough. Until this government can do that, until we can be honest with ourselves that the reason we came here is to represent the people, not our individual ideas, we need to change. And if there is any guidance, Madam Minister, it is to guide our national leaders, because we need the Nathans of today. We need the Esthers of today who will stand up and speak truth to the leaders so that we may preserve the very fabric of this nation. I thank you.